Now it is difficult. It is exceedingly difficult for you and me to draw upon our imagination and picture a primitive state of living. Living out in the open with just tents made of skins and seeing the winter coming on and the grass for our goats and cows or horses or whatever stock we might have had, see the grass disappear and see our little hoard of provisions over the cruel period of the winter disappear. And we shiver, around a little Indian fire, We call it Indian fire because Indian says, white man digs, big fire, stands way off, roasts on one side, freeze on the other. The Indians do a little fire, look back and around, hover over little fire. Well, we hovered over little fires through the winter. Now you see, we're so conditioned, to our heating systems, our warm houses, our tight roofs, and our provisions. All we got to do is just run down to the delicatessen or cafeteria or the store. Just run down and get what you want. Gracious alive! Can we go back and imagine a primitive, elemental state of living? Well, if we can, even a little, go back to when we lived so primitive and in the open, the return of the sun meant everything to us. Everything. Why, the frozen conditions will break up. The frozen streams will run again. Grass will come. Verdure will come. Warmth will come. My, we can get out in the sun and get warm. And we shiver, all these months in our primitive clothes and our primitive tents. Why, my, what a wonderful thing, that return of the sun. So great rejoicing at the return of the sun. Now, not only a year or two, thousands and thousands and thousands of years, until that was deeply seared, deeply buried in our consciousness, the rejoicing of the return of the sun. Until no wonder they, or we, called it the sun god and watched its course because it had such an intimate bearing upon our existence. Now, the origin of the cross stems from our interest in the sun. And I now direct your attention to this diagram we've got on the board. Another point we have to make now at this time, we didn't, at that period, or they didn't, have the understanding of the structure of the solar system and the relation of the Earth to the solar system and the relation of the solar system to the galaxy as we have today. Although our understanding is primitive relative to what will be, because already astronomy is becoming obsolete because they're doing more now with the registry of the electronic waves from distant mass stars and star clusters than they ever did with a telescope. And modern astronomy is rapidly developing now into electronics, where the telescope will be done away with as an obsolete instrument. But however, relative to our understanding of the structure of the solar system and the galaxy, their concept was very primitive, childlike, just like it looks. Take an untrained child, let the child grow up until he can look at the moon and the sun and the planets and the stars. And the child would say, well, this earth is not moving, see, it's solid, and I'm on it, it's all solid. But the moon is moving, the sun is moving, planets are moving, star clusters are moving. See, I'm not moving. Everything's moving. Everything is revolving around. From daylight to dark. And we have to think of that. From daylight to dark. Relative now to the sun. Movement of the sun. And so here's a diagram of the way it looked. The sun looked like it was out there. Revolving around. But relative to the earth, let us allow this to be the earth. Relative to the earth, the sun was only 92 million miles distant. But it looked way out there, like there was a vast sphere or dome, if we take half of it, through which the sun traveled. Apparently. Of course, I'm not going to try to get elementalistic by telling you the actual movements. You all know that. Every youth knows that now, you know. The motions of the earth. And if you wish to play a little parlor game, propose the question, how many movements has the earth? See how many movements you can count up that the earth has. If you can count 13 movements, mark it good. If you can count 21 movements right off, mark it excellent. But it has more than that. It has more than 21 movements simultaneously. See how many you can count up. Now, among yourselves, when you go home, play a game among yourselves. How many movements has the earth? How many can you count and describe? Well, that'll be interesting. But however, you know enough of the movements of the earth in its spiraling orbit around the sun that I'm not going to pretend to put that in. I just want to rest upon the way it looked to the childhood of the race, to the primitive people that had no knowledge of the movements of the earth. They say they couldn't count one movement, let alone 21. But this is the way the sun looked. It looked like it was going around. But in its travel around, there was a celestial equator. This is a diagram of the celestial sphere. It's just like that we extended the equator of the earth, imaginary band around the earth, just like we extended it out to the outer limits of the apparent sphere, or globe. It looks like we're in a globe. And when the sun crossed that celestial equator, there were two, I should have said, not when the sun crossed that celestial equator, I should have said there were two crossings of the pathway of the sun over the celestial equator. Now, one, as you know, is the vernal equinox, where the days and nights are exactly equal. The other is the autumnal equinox, where the days and nights are exactly equal. But as the sun journeyed around, it also veered southward relative to the horizon. Now, those of you who've studied even the Mayan culture, you'll see those pyramids, and then where relative to the horizon, when the sun reached its furthest north, it stood still, and then went back south relative to the horizon. They put a point, another pyramid over there, flat top. So these were observation towers, and then over here another one, where the observer here could mark the furthest north relative to the horizon that the sun traveled, apparently traveled, and then retreated back south to the furthest point. And from these 2 points of observation, the entire Mayan calendar was developed, which is a superior calendar to the Gregorian calendar that we have today. But however, when the sun, in its journey south, as it circled through the constellations, now as the sun journeyed south, it reached that point where it crossed the celestial equator and went into darkness, the darkness of winter. Now, at the winter solstice, the observers on these towers, or in ancient Egypt, the observers noted when the sun started back north. It went its furthest point south, and then started back. Now, as it started back, it was the winter solstice. Now, at that point, which is our December the 22nd, now, at that point, the announcement was made. The sun is coming back. Now remember how we've been shivering, and how our food's running short, and how the stock is getting poor and emaciated, and how the milk is giving out. And now the sun, we get the note, the notice. Sun is coming back. Oh, that was something to rejoice about. Now, when the sun when the idea of the God, the concept of the God was attributed to the sun, and it was called the sun god, then the return of the sun god was like the return of life itself. Now, this is very brief, oversimplified, though I'm trusting to the fact that you're as conversant with this as I am, if not more so. And I'm not presuming to instruct you about this. I'm just recalling it to your remembrance for a particular reason. And the reason is this. When the sun returned, at the fullness of the return of the verdure and the running streams, it was like new life was born again. Life returned throughout the earth. And that rebirth was correlated, was equated with the symbolical representation of the awakening of the Christos. The return of the Christos after the descending ark, the unconscious process of involution, and now came the conscious awakening in the return of the bearer